Alright guys, today I'm starting to work on the little 10 bolt rear end I'm going to be putting in the 4-door 55. And right away it started bad. No surprise to me with my luck. I got one bolt that doesn't want to come out. I tried using the socket on it and it's starting to round it off. So I got vice grips out with teeth on the very end and still not working. So what I'm going to do is take the 9 bolts out of it and I'm going to hammer on the cover that way, like I'm hoping this rotates. It won't go very far because of the ring gear is going to hit the cover, but I'm hoping there's enough room that I can move it a little bit and it might jar that loose. So here goes nothing. I don't think that's going to work. Dang it. And I think it's just bending the flange on it. Of course. Now it might move. Broke the seal loose on it. It's really just bending the flange is all it's doing. Dang it. It's always got to be the one damn bolt. You know what? Yeah, I cannot believe it. I'm just going to flatten that flange out right there. I can't get to that bolt. That corner's so rounded off, the vice grips are just trying to peel over. I can't believe this crap. Please, I swear. There we go, you piece of crap. Golly. I have another rear end cover in a box up there from an original one, so I'll have to swap it out. This one's pretty pitted anyway, got a lot of craters in it, so. It's very nice inside, even the cover's clean. Okay. I've always liked these little 10 bolts in my G-bodies. They're very easy to work on if you can get the bolt out of the rear end cover, I guess. I don't think this has ever been off before. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of you guys, the guys that don't know how to remove your axles to replace your axle seals. These are so much easier to work on than a factory 55, 6, and 7 rear. Now even if you get an 8.5 10 bolt from like a second generation F body, 70 to 81, it's exactly the same as this, the way it comes apart and everything. You don't have to have any specialty tools. So anyway, you have a bolt right here, and this bolt is really long, but it's actually got a pin on the end of it. There's not threads all the way, so you got to take this off without stripping it out. What I've got here is a snap-on wrench that I bought years ago just for this as one wrench. It's a 5/16, but it is a regular hex head instead of the 12 point on the box end. Actually, that thing is actually a little loose. That kind of makes me nervous. Let's see if we can strip it out. That'll be great. There we go. Now a lot of times, it's happened a lot. It actually happened to me on my cousin's 10 bolt I got to put in his hardtop. I did all the paint and everything on the rear end, welded all purchase, and then I painted it with car paint, base coat, clear coat. Then I took it apart to change all the seals and stuff, and the pin was broke off in there, and we never got it out of there. He actually ended up getting it out of there because I tried for a couple hours to get it out. So anyway, so your cap right here has a high in it. It actually, the bearing cap right here has this low spot, so you want to rotate that to where it comes out to the low spot so you can get that bolt out. That's what it looks like. But anyway, if somebody did a whole bunch of burnouts and donuts and stuff, I think that's probably what would cause the tip to break off, and this will be stuck down in there. Sometimes they come out, sometimes they really just are stuck. But anyway, I got the bolt out, thank goodness. Now I feel a little bit more comfortable about it. So at this point, you'll take and you'll stick your finger underneath that carrier, and you'll feel that hole where this pin is, and you'll lift that out of there. So see that hole in the end of that? That's where that pin of that bolt goes in. That's what holds it in place. Now this actually has some wear on it. I can feel it's got a hell of a ridge in it, so I'm going to buy a new one at O'Reilly's. These are very inexpensive at O'Reilly's. So anyway, the pin is out. Now, at this point, when you look up inside there, you see old spider gears and stuff, and you see the end of the axle. So what you do is you take your hand down here. It might be better to show you all from this thing. I'll take my hand and I'll put it on that and then the end of the axle, and I will push toward me. And if you heard that, that was the sound of the C-clip falling out. You're supposed to have a pin magnet but mine ended up breaking and I threw it away. So there's a C-clip right there. And then you take this, that's how you get an axle out. So I always inspect the axle right here on the end where the bearing rides, because a lot of these will be chewed up sometimes. I don't feel any ridge, so this side is good. So I'm going to reuse this axle. I do have another pair in my shed from my Cutlass Salon because I ended up buying some aftermarket axles and putting in that car. Now here's a little trick I'm going to show you. You do not have to have some fancy seal puller to change your axle seals, which are pressed in down here. Here's your axle seal puller right here. See that indent where that C-clip went? We'll take that, stick it up in that seal like that. There's your old axle seal right there. Throw that over there because it is leaking, dripping anyway. Alright, so I don't have to bother with solvent and cleaning out this rear end and all that crap. This is really, really clean inside. It's just got old fluid in it, you know, but I'm not going to go through the hassle of stripping the iron all down clean and doing fresh. I'm going to leave it because right now it is super well lubricated. It's never had any water in it. So that's a good foundation. That rear end it looks like heck, but it is in good shape. Now if you have a limited slip posi unit, it is a lot harder to get them C-clips out because there's a lot of crap in the way, but it can be done. Now I've said this in a couple other of my videos on G-bodies, I think, but I'm going to run through it again. I learned from an old man, worked at Chevrolet, don't put silicone sealer on your rear end to put your cover on. It didn't have silicone on it when, you know, from stock. And the reason is the silicone will wind up down inside, which the gears will pretty much just chew the crap out of it. But it makes a mess down in all the bolt holes. If you ever have to pull that cover off to service this or work on it, you're going to have one hell of a mess to clean up. And if you value your time, my advice is to buy the $6 Felpro cover gasket and put on there, and put it on dry. That's exactly the way the GM gasket is. There is no silicone sealer on this, and that hole had rust all the way around it, so there was never a leak on this rear end. So that's exactly how I put them back together, is with a Felpro rear end cover gasket. It's either, you know, I don't even know what a tube of silicone RTV is anymore, but it's a heck of a lot nicer just to scrape this off, put a new gasket on it, put the cover on dry, and tighten her down than it is to clean silicone for 30 minutes and then put it all back on there. And I actually had a young kid at O'Reilly's. I went down to get a rear end cover gasket about 10 years ago, and he said, just silicone it. And I was like, nope, I want the seal, I want the gasket. So this axle is also in good shape. You want to make sure you don't have any ridges or pits or something from that bearing going bad. So this is a good axle. I'm happy about that. Anyway, and that stuff stinks, let me tell you. So I think I'll have to look. I've got a Felpro rear end cover gasket that I bought for it's basically for painting. If you take a rear end apart and you plan on painting it afterwards, you know, you're always going to have drips like this. Some of the gasket stayed here, some of it's gone. So if I put the cover back on and then, you know, tighten it all back down and then go back to, you know, clean it up and paint it, it's going to seep oil out and contaminate it, so you can't get paint to stick around it. So I have a brand new Felpro gasket, but it has paint all the way around the edge because I've always used it for a paint mask, basically. Now I do like those covers. You can buy a cover and it's from Proform. You can get it at Summit, but it's a Proform brand who is licensed by GM. But they have some really nice, they're called girdles. Anyway, it has two set bolts that go in there that you can tighten down, and they put pressure on the cap right here. You don't super tighten them, you just run them down enough to stick to it. And it's just a really nice cast aluminum cover, and it's about 140 bucks, I think. I don't have the money to buy one, or I would. But anyway, it increases the life of your, you know, you take a little bit more power to the rear end than otherwise not having anything. It just holds pressure on the cap and keeps it from breaking. But, you know, these 10 bolts, you know, if you put slicks on them and you take them to the track and you're hard launching, you know, they're probably not going to last very long. Those axles are really, really small, but there is I cannot remember the name of it. One of the famous axle companies sells, Mosier maybe? I think it is Mosier. They sell axles direct fit for these G-bodies, and I think they're only like 300 bucks for the set. And I actually put a set in my salon, my Cutlass salon, because it had a 4-speed in it, and I just didn't want to, you know, take the chance. But I can't remember if I put a rear end girdle on it or not. I think I did, but I figured, you know, if I was out somewhere and I wanted to get onto it, I could do that. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and cut the video off right now. Probably add more to it as I go, but anyway, that's enough for now. All right, so I got the rear end cleaned up here. I used a red Scotch disc 2-inch on my angle grinder and cleaned it up real nice. Also cleaned up this cover here on the where the gasket goes to it on the other side, so it'll seal good, because you know, when I start doing the paint work on this, I don't want it seeping oil, so I want it to be sealed. But I've got this gasket here I've used a couple of times because I don't ever super torque it down, you know, so this thing still would work for this. But anyway, you can see the paint around it. Anyway, I will put that on there, and I'll use the original bolts and just barely snug it. But I actually dug out some stainless stuff here. Now, a long time ago, I had a I think it was an 82 Jaguar XJ6 I drug in with a knocking engine, and I was going to put a small block in it. I actually bought the kit and everything to do it. Then I ended up trading the car off, and so the engine, tranny, all that kind of stuff I kept. Well, I bought a brand new ARP engine accessory kit for small block Chevy, and the hex head. This is not 12 point, these are just the hex. But anyway, so I've got a lot of extras in here as well, but some of this stuff is labeled, and I went through everything. It's been several months ago, but I'm missing like 2 or 3 for the intake, and then I don't have any header bolts that go to the head. So, you know, I need to buy the header bolt set, and then a 5-pack of the ones, the 3/8x16 by I think 3/4 or 1 inch, I can't remember, for the intake. And then I'd have a full engine accessory ARP polished stainless hex head set for it. So that's what I'm going to do. But anyway, on this rear end, you know, these bolts are pretty jacked, and they're rusty and crusty. And that one you've seen me have trouble with. But anyway, I got my slide tray here out of stainless. I've got a lot of stainless steel stuff here, and this is all Allen head bolt stuff. And I went through, and I actually had stainless steel 5/16 by 18 in the same underhead length as the factory bolts. So that's what I'm going to put in the new rear end cover that I put on there. I've got another original one here somewhere. I think it's in better shape than this one because this one's so pitted. I did hammer this flange back out, but anyway, so I'll probably put the original bolts and all the crap on here to tighten this down, and that way I can do all the sanding and painting on this rear end and get it ready. And then all I have to do is pull the cover off and put the new one on with the new bolts. So at least that'll be a little bit of detail on the rear end. The only reason I'm doing it is because I had it. But these old school socket cap Allens like this, you can actually get these at Lowe's cheaper than like a standard hardware store. Like I have a Ace Hardware downtown, but they charge by the bolt, and they're very, very expensive. If you go to Lowe's, they have an aisle that has, you know, hardware, and you'll pull out a cabinet and it'll have these, and I want to say there's 2 in a package, but it's cheaper to buy them at Lowe's in the 2-pack or even 4-pack. I don't remember what it is, but I have seen these socket caps down there in many different sizes. So it kind of sucks. The last rear end cover I bought had a full set of these. They're just CAD plated socket caps. They're not stainless. And I was like, oh hell, there's 10 of those, brand new, I'll just use those. Well, these are metric, so they won't work in my rear end, but I had those, you know, just a hardware thing. You know me, if you follow my channel long enough, I am a hardware junkie. These leaf spring mounting pads are pretty crusty, so I'm gonna go ahead and kind of squeaky blast them. Hope you like my headband. That's a sleeve off an old t-shirt. You can get them, you know, perfectly gray, but it's good enough to weld to. All right, guys, it's Thursday, August 12th, 2021. So this is my second day on the rear axle assembly setup here. So I've got it pretty much rigged up here in the garage floor, really redneck style, which is how I roll. This will be pretty much how all the other garage builder guys would probably do it. So anyway, the first thing you should do is level your chassis. I use a bubble level on both sides. You just kind of have to look around on the frame for a nice flat spot because they are, you know, ripply. I do remember when I built my motor mounts and set everything up with my transmission cross, remember when I leveled it, I had this about right here, so it's in about the same spot. So I basically jacked up the front, and I've got the rear on jack stands, but I set up the front with a jack, and then I got both of those bubbles in the center, so I know the frame is level. So then at that point, when you set your rear end up in there, and I've got my, you know, blasted leaf spring perches locked onto the leaf springs, and they're centered on it. So at this point, I went in here with blocks of wood, and luckily on these little 10 bolt like this one, the bottom of that rear end, the housing actually angles. So by moving the wood forward or backward, you can dial in your pinion. Now that pinion or yoke, whatever you want to call it, on the end of that rear needs to be 3 degrees down. So I will say this because this got me in trouble. I have put in a lot of rear ends from other cars in Tri-5 Chevys. I've always done it the same way, and back in, I would say 2013, 2014, somewhere in there, I was actually watching a video on YouTube. It was Chris Jacobs. I don't remember, Hub Garage, I think. I don't remember, but he went to Rad Ride's shop and talked to Troy. And they were talking about stuff, and it was an interview. And he had stated that you want to set your chassis on the frame table at ride height, at the pitch of, I don't know what you call it, the rake of the frame, how you're going to have the car sitting. So anyway, I had planned on putting a rake in my hardtop. So, you know, what I basically did was I set that, I think it was 3/4 or 1 inch, I don't remember, but I set a rake up on my frame when I had it doing it. And then I set my pinion angle and welded everything up and got everything done, built the cross member, all that stuff, and then had it all lined up and ready. So then I had the frame in here like a year, 2 years, 3, I don't remember, later. And I had the frame in here in the garage, and I actually had jack stands, 4 jack stands, I think, if I remember right. I had a jack stand there and a jack stand there. Anyway, so it was pretty much kind of level in here. But anyway, I was doing metalwork and bodywork finishing on it, and the rear axle and stuff was in it. And a buddy of mine come over, and he looked down at that pinion, and he goes, "That doesn't look right." And I was like, "Well, it should be." So we stuck an angle finder on it, and holy crap, it was way off. I was like, "What the hell?" I had forgot that I had set the frame rake. Anyway, it really sucked because I had built the cross member, had it set right, and I did all my exhaust pipe on the car. I did all the forward exhaust section of that car. You know, I had all kinds of mandrel bends that I'd cut pie cuts out of and actually pieced them all together to go through the passages in my X center on my frame. So that exhaust was built for the way I had it set up. So after he seen that, and then I felt stupid because I was like, I know these things go up 3 degrees when you put them in gear. So we kind of argued back and forth, and I think both of us just more or less got confused. But anyway, I felt like a real dummy. And I have never had a vibration in any of my cars. So I was like, I know what I'm doing, you know what I mean? But anyway, I ended up taking it all back apart, cutting all the perches loose, the cross member up. I had to remodify the cross member, had to rebuild the pie cuts in the exhaust. Because, you know, when you change the angle, your exhaust changes. The way I built mine anyway. So I'm telling you, it was a lot of work. It was like 2 weeks of work. So then I reset it all, and then I went through and I did all the paint and bodywork and all that crap on the hardtop. Then I go to set my body on, and my pinch weld of my transmission tunnel, where it meets the toe board, was touching the top of the trans, and I lacked about, I don't know, probably an 1/8 inch from the body mounts bolting to the body. So I was mad, and I really didn't understand what the heck had went on. You know, I had the body mocked up on the chassis with those urethane body mounts exactly the way I was gonna do it before. So just changing all that stuff without having the body on, I had a clearance issue. So anyway, I basically, you know, I had to modify the trans tunnel pinch weld lip under there to clearance it for room, because that pinch weld, you know, it's about 1 inch thick or something. So it ended up working out okay. But anyway, now the car has a rake, and I'd measured it once, and I don't remember, but you can kind of tell. Of course, it's not together yet. It will come down in the back more, but it's going to come down in the front more as well. But you can see a rake, so that's a pretty good rake. Now what happens is if you set your car up like this and you plan on dropping the front lower and have a rake, and you're running a carburetor, guess what? Your float levels are going to be off, because that carburetor needs to set flat for your proper float level. So anyway, that turned into a mess for me. I was really mad about the whole deal because I'd forgot I watched that stupid video, and the only reason I remembered that is I ended up finding some of my notes in an old notebook, because I had always take notes of everything, and I actually was going back through that book, and I seen that notation, and I was like, son of a gun. So with this 4-door, it's going to be stock height, so level is fine. Anyway, so I've got this thing set up 3 degrees down. I have 2 different angle finders here. I don't have a fancy digital one. I wish I did. But anyway, I've got them set up. Both of them reading the same. So I know that's right, and that's why I run 2 bubble levels, make sure I'm right. So anyway, at this point, I have measured off the back plate to the side of the leaf spring on both sides, and I've got it identical. So this thing is ready to be welded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of tacks on each side, a couple of good heavy tacks on each side, you know, 4 total here and 4 total there. Then I'm going to pull the rear end back out, and then I'm going to take it back out here, set it on my sawhorses, and then I'm going to pull the welder out there, and then I'm going to do a full stitch on both sides. So anyway, quite the mess, but you know, it is what it is. It's in the past, I guess, but you know, if you're going to do something oddball, you might ought to write a note or hang something on the wall, because I always put notes everywhere because I forget crap, man. I've got stuff wrote on my deal here. I've got a lot of stuff wrote over here on this board here, or this cabinet door. But anyway, this time I've double checked everything and I've made sure it is accurate. So this should be exactly right. Now I'll tell you, if you're doing your motor mounts and you're putting a cross member in your Tri-5 Chevy, you want to make sure that your frame is level. My cousin's 55 hardtop, somebody had put an aftermarket cross member in it, and they didn't set pinion angle or nothing. His car had a bad vibration in it. He had a factory rear end in it. Stock height that wasn't altered with, you know, lowering blocks or anything. Not that that would make a difference, but anyway, when I got in there messing around with it and checking it with an angle finder, it was 6 degrees off. That's how bad it was. So I had to end up shimming. I put thick spacers in between his cross member and his frame brackets. So you basically, if you're doing that, you want to not have your carburetor on your intake manifold, and you set a level on that carburetor flange on that intake manifold, and if that is dead on 0, it is where it needs to be, because it automatically puts the transmission tail shaft 3 degrees down. So you put your front of your rear end 3 degrees down, but when you put these cars in gear, they ride up. That pinion on that rides up, and it makes it straight. So, you know, I am not a chassis expert. I do have a chassis book in there that I have read years ago, but, you know, anyway, it's just, I've done a lot of rear ends in Tri-5s, and I've never had a vibration issue. So I know I'm at least doing something right, because if you get one off a little bit, you know, you're going to have a hell of a vibration. I remember buying one time that somebody had put a rear end in, and they didn't have it all in there right. And when you were driving on the highway at like 55 or 65 miles an hour, it had a harmonics vibration to it that you could hear it and feel it, but it was in and out. It was going vroom, vroom, vroom. So that's kind of what it does. Anyway, food for thought right there. But anyway, I'm going to get back to doing some welding. All right, guys, so I'm out here. I'm going to take off these brackets right here. I've already sliced them a little bit with my cutoff wheel and my grinder. I've actually already removed this one. Anyway, these are your bump stops that will come in contact with your frame if you get, you know, if it ever bottoms out. Anyway, one side of this is attached by the U-bolt, so that's what holds this end on. I'm going to be transferring this stuff to that 10 bolt, so I need these tabs. I have made these before out of pieces of strap, but you know, I've already cut all the brackets off of this rear end. I might as well take these two. I will say on my cousin's hardtop, somebody had moved the leaf springs inboard, so these wouldn't work anymore in the location where they need to hit on the frame. So what I ended up doing was I actually took a stud and welded, I think it was 3/8 or 5/16, I don't remember. I welded a little stud around that right there sticking up, and then it was real short, and then I used a flanged serrated nut to bolt this end down, and then built these from scratch. So these would be removable. These need to be removable so you can change out the bushing or the bump stop itself. It does slip out through the bottom. This one's kind of stuck, but anyway, I'm going to run these for now, but you can tell they're pretty dried out. These probably ain't going to last much longer. One good bottom out would probably break them, so I'm not going to buy any right now and then have to pay shipping for them, so I'm just going to rock these. But anyway, I'm going to try to get them mounted up on the rear. So now I'm back in here. in the garage on the 10 bolt here, and I have set the bump stop housing up here, and I've got the U-bolt set up there, and I've got the U-bolt set up against the leaf spring. And then I'd taken a fine tip Sharpie here, and I drew right here so I could draw the tab out so I'll know where this piece goes. And these are the tabs I cut off. And anyway, I'm going to go in here with my 36 grit roll lock there. Well, that's a 50, so I'll use it. But anyway, I'm going to square these off a little bit, and then I'm going to clean them up on the wire wheel a little bit so they're, you know, not so crusty. And then I have my mark so I know where to put it. But anyway, I'm going to put it on there, and then I'll put a little stitch there and a little stitch there, and then I have my little tabs to slide that out to replace that bushing if I need to. So anyway, all right, I got the tabs welded on there, and I usually go in with my roll lock there and just kind of round this just a little bit, kind of radius it, not take it round here on the corners, but just, you know, edge it off there a little bit, and then that'll go in there and lock in. So now they are replaceable just like factory. So the only thing left for me to do is remove the old brake line fold over tabs that this 10 bolt had. There's actually 3 of them. I cut off the ends, but now I'm just going to go in with a grinder and grind these off flat, smooth it out. And then I'm going to actually, I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to pull the rear end out of this right now and take it over there. That way, get the welding done on it, and at that point it's ready to clean up and then paint. And then if I spray paint it, which is probably what I'll do, I can put it back in the same day. So one thing down, slowly but surely. Getting excited. All right, guys, so I got the perches welded on, welded both sides. The only thing left now, I went in there and brushed all that clean, but I think I need to go ahead and get the knotted cut brush on the grinder and get after this rear end and clean it up. But I still have to remove them brake line tabs from what the 10 bolt had originally, because I'm going to have to do something different there. But anyway, I'm going to clean it up with a knotted cut brush and then figure out my brake line routing and stuff, and then weld some tabs on there, and then I should be done. I hope. All right, so I think I got all my welding pretty much done. I am thinking about going ahead where these really big craters are in these axle tubes. I'm thinking about going ahead and welding those up and then grinding them smooth, because there's a few of them in there. I may go ahead and do that. Anyway, what I just did now was trying to figure out how I was going to run the brake lines, the new ones. I'm going to custom bend my own. Anyway, I got a piece of angle here, so I cut a little piece of it off and I trimmed down one end, but I stitched it on each end, and it's basically going to be an upright bracket for a brake line clamp, which is these. These are billet specialties. This is half of it. There's another half, but what I'll end up doing is that'll fit on there really nice like that, and I'll drill it and tap it for the little bolts that come with these, and that way it'll hold the brake line. Anyway, it's going to bend and come out around this stuff and then back up and then across here. And then these pads right here, I may end up trimming these back down some more. I'd like to get these more triangles looking, because this had a mount up here. But anyway, I'll drill and tap the housing to take some more of those billet specialties clamps like that. And then the brake line will go up and bend it over and back over to the junction block. So anyway, I'm not really going to worry about one over here because it's really not that far for the brake line to go. I probably could, but I just don't think it's necessary. But anyway, these little brake line clamps here, these are billet specialties, and you can get them from Summit. And for a 3/16 brake line, it is 0.188 if you're looking. So I have them in my hard top, and I just have a couple extras here, but I may go ahead and buy a pack from Summit. I do have a few parts in the cart to buy for this car, you know, water pump and engine gasket set, just little shocks and just piddly stuff. I may go ahead and buy another pack of those and actually use them up here on the frame cradle, drill and tap the frame to put those line clamps on. They look really, really nice, especially if the hood's going to be up, you'd see them. You know, back here I use these factory G-body ones, and you know, I had to grind the tabs off and everything. So I might go ahead and buy a pack of those to do the rest of the brake lines over on the front of the frame. But anyway, this thing is now, other than maybe me going in and welding this is pretty much ready for me to go ahead and start cleaning it up and getting it ready for paint. So I'm happy. All right, guys, it is Saturday, August 14th. I still don't have the little 10 bolt painted yet. I still don't even have it finished cleaned up yet. So it rained yesterday, so it kind of pretty much halted any progress on that. And it hasn't rained yet, but it's really cloudy, and we've got a 46% chance, so it looks like it's going to rain any second. So I'm gonna have to wait on the rear end. I've kind of changed my mind. I was gonna just spray paint that, and I really don't want to paint over the rust, which the stainless knotted cut brush on the grinder right there, it's cleaning it up okay, but it still has that brown tinge of rust to it, you know. And I mean, normally I go through there with my blaster and I blast everything clean and, you know, etch it or epoxy it and then go back over it with paint. But what I've decided that is going to be the best way to go for me, I think I'm just going to buy a quart of POR 15 in gloss black and then just get it cleaned up the best I can and then just paint it. That POR 15 stuff, it's gloss black. If you've ever shot that out of the gun, it lays down really nice. It lays out really slick. You know, not that it needs to be show worthy or anything, but the thing for me is painting over rust. So I think that's going to be the way I'll go, is just go ahead and buy a quart of POR 15 and paint the rear end. But this way I can do the coil springs, the upper and lower control arms, and the coil springs, because all that stuff is just crusty, rusty. And, you know, I won't have to spend all the hours in cleaning all the metal up super clean just to etch prime it and paint it. So with that, I can just kind of, you know, clean off the majority of the rust, get it kind of smooth, and then paint over it. So that's the beauty of that stuff. That's what I'm going to do. And anyway, so haven't done any of that yet. I did order a few parts from Summit for the 4-door. I had a very, very large list from Summit, and it was a pretty expensive list. And I decided just to go ahead and get half of it, and I'll get the other half later. But I went ahead and divided the list up into stuff that I kind of need right now. So that's what I did, because I want to get the chassis done completely and bolted together. And then I wanted to get the engine and the transmission, at least the long block, ready to go, and the transmission ready to go. You know, I'm not going to, I didn't put a water pump on that. The list is on the second list, but I'm going to need a water pump and just, you know, spark plugs and oil and filter and that type of crap. But what I got now was gaskets and that type of crap. That way I can go ahead and put the engine together, long block basically, and get that rocking and rolling. So anyway, I'll paint the rear end at a later time because I got to wait for the POR 15 to come in. Thanks for watching.